Hi there, it's Mark from Porta-Jib showing you the assembly of the new version 3 of the Explorer jib slider system. One thing we changed, as you'll notice right away, is we have gone to hard shell cases with wheels, which makes the transport obviously a lot easier. We've also decided to try to make a lot of the individual components function as one device when it's in the jib mode and another device while it's in the trolley mode. And that's why we've been able to lower the price of the jib slider combination by almost $500. So for those of you who have just bought this and need a little help assembling it and disassembling it, that's what we're going to do right now. Or for those of you who are just interested in how all this goes together, here's how it goes. So in one of the cases, we have the tripod and the trolley, and in the other, we have the entire jib assembly. So let's start here. You'll notice it's a little bit unique in that the tripod lid completely removes from the case. A lot of the cases are hinged on the lid at this point, and we're going to use that tripod lid as the weight bucket later. So to pull this out, you could lift it out this way, but it's a little easier if you just put it on the ground and slide it out like this. Now you'll notice that there's 2 bags of components also. So you got to remember how these things came apart so you can put them back properly. Small bag in the small section, large bag in the large section. So when it comes out of the case, it's as a complete unit like this. We have the 2 sections of the jib sandwiched together just for transport purposes. It's held together with this bracket, secured with this screw. So all we have to do is remove this screw in order to separate the 2 sections. This piece is going to double as the weight bucket support bracket. Notice how they came apart so that you can nest them back together properly so they will fit back in the case. This section is going to have this piece pointing down as well as this piece pointing down and just resting like that, and then you secure it with these 2 pieces again. So in other words, if you sit it like this, it's not going to fit in the case. All right? In the tripod case, we have the trolley for the slider. We have a tripod itself. And we have something new to version 3, as we're calling this a duopod, because it's like the tripod, but it only has 2 legs and a clamp receptacle. This is only used in the trolley mode, slider mode. Okay, these are the various components that were in the bags that were not part of the 2 main assembled sections that we just looked at, except for these 2 pieces, which were the lock for that. You'll notice that there are 4 clamps. There are 2 that are the same. This one's slightly different still. There are 6 leveling feet, 4 that are the same, 2 slightly different in terms of their shape of their locks. That will be explained in a minute. 2 12-inch rails, 1 17-inch rail. The trolley, when it was in its storage position, has the wheels on the one side reversed. So when they actually are going to be used on the trolley, you just have to swing these around like that. And the cup for both the trolley and the jib mode. And this is the fulcrum assembly. We're going to start by putting the fulcrum assembly on the tripod. So our tripod looks a little different now. It has a 3/8/16 shaft coming up out of the top of a flat surface. It also, as with many things in this system, has 2 functions. It's going to act as the mounting point to our fulcrum assembly, and if it's made longer, it's going to serve a different purpose when we go into the slider mode. So when we're in jib mode, we just need about a 1/2 inch or so of thread sticking out. And instead of tightening from below like you might be used to doing, you're just simply going to lock the fulcrum pan base, hold the knob, and spin the fulcrum onto the shaft rather than turning the shaft. Give it a little tight, snug it up, and then you can unlock it so that it still pans. One thing about this system is you could put it together backwards, upside down, So the idea is that if this bracket dovetail is pointing away from me, this big clamp is pointing towards me, the rails for the rear section are going to go to my right. So it just drops in like that. And then you lock it down. When we come to this side, we want to make sure that this is unlocked. On this section, the clamps are facing me, just like this original clamp was facing me. So we drop this in here. It's easier to get the bottom rail to engage if the unit is parallel to the ground. And this is going to just slide in like that. You make sure that this little safety pin engages this hole like that. And you lock it with the clamp. So we have the beginning of the jib. So the camera side will be the side that says Porta-Jib with this bracket on it. This will be the weight bucket side. To do the front assembly, we have this 12-inch rail and this clamp that has this L-shaped bracket attached to it. So we start by just sliding this in, and you can put it wherever you like. Generally leave it a little bit high. And this can go in a variety of positions depending on what you're trying to do, but the normal position for it is up here like this. And then it's finished by using the same teardrop shaped piece that we use on the trolley. And it attaches here. Like that. And you can angle it in towards this way in line with the arm. When you have a fairly heavy load, a really light camera, you can afford to bring it out this way so that you have a little more clearance from your elbow to the rail when you're working the jib. But for a heavy camera, it may cause everything to torque a little bit, so you want to keep the weight more in line with the jib this way. So for the weight bucket assembly, we're going to start with another one of these 12-inch rails. It's going to slide into this clamp just like it did on the front, but this time parallel to the ground instead of perpendicular. Lock that up. To this, we're going to add the weight bucket support bracket, which is the piece we saw earlier. And you'll notice it has a notch that matches the rail here. These primarily are used as just leveling feet for the low mode in conjunction with the 12-inch rails. When you're in jib mode instead of slider mode, this section is going to mate with the hole underneath here and thread into this bracket. Now you don't want the bolt to protrude above the surface here, so we'll just back that off a little bit. And then secure it by turning this knob at the bottom to act as a jam nut up against the bottom of the rail. Then we add this little bracket to the rail, and then we're ready to add the weight bucket. Notice this has a nice groove in it where the strap is, and that's going to match the groove, the profile of this bracket here. So we just drop that into place. And now you are going to have to adjust the overall length of the straps because it'll be different than they are when it's acting as on the tripod case. It's almost all the way out. So if you run them all the way out, you'll be real close to where you need to be. And then just clip that in. And there you go, that's our weight bucket. And next we want to put on what we call a stiffening bar. And these two leveling feet that have the single knob, they're going to go act as bolts going through there to there, and you're going to thread it onto the clamp like that. And then that's going to clamp on. And just centers on the two upper rails, and then lock it down. Okay, so our jib is built. Now we just need to add the camera and the counterweights. You have two choices. You could unlock, I'm going to unlock this regardless, but you can make a really steep angle here and load your camera, and it's it's steep enough that it's not going to tip over the tripod. Another choice would be to utilize one of your cases as a support point. The trick about this is make sure that the wheels are pointing perpendicular to the rails, because if you have them this way, it would be possible with the weight perhaps to kick out like that. So you certainly don't want that to happen. So we've added our 100 millimeter fluid head, set the bubble level, and add our camera package. So before we step away from it, make sure everything is secure, it's supported. If you have a second person standing by, have them hold on to it until you get the counterbalance set up in the back. And this brings us to our weight bucket, which is a really clever idea, especially for people traveling. They do not have to carry traditional steel weights with them the way they do with most jib arms. You can put anything in here to be the ballast. It can be rocks, dirt, sand, bottles of water, extra batteries, and this odds and end tools. A tuning weight can be your bottle of water. This is a little bit heavy right now, so we just need to remove a little tiny bit of weight. And there we are. Of course, I cheated. I knew how much water to drink on that one. But anyway, it's very easy to balance. Now we're in jib mode. As you can see, it goes exceptionally high for a very small jib. So this is jib mode, and we also have slider mode. So we're going to remove the camera, remove the weights, flip it over, and make this into a 6-foot slider. So we've removed all the weight bucket assembly here. We're going to keep the 12-inch rail. We're going to remove our center stiffening device. We've already taken the camera off, obviously. And now we're going to remove this portion, and we're going to reuse the cup on the trolley. To get the rails off, everything stays assembled as is. All we do is loosen this one clamp, and off it goes, and now we have the heart of our 6-foot slider. To remove our fulcrum piece, again, I'm holding the knob, turning the fulcrum. This, as I told you, needs to be able to be longer when it's in the trolley mode. So we're spinning this up a bit, about like that, because it is now going to act as a support point for our slider. And it's going to, this hole right here, it's going to slide over that 3/8/16 shaft coming up like that. On the other end, we're going to move the 12-inch rod in to about in a more centered position. And to that, we're going to add our duopod. And have that clamp. Make sure that's nice and snug. So you may have to adjust the legs to overall height to make sure things are level. That's pretty obvious. One thing that's very important, when I first dropped the unit onto this tripod, you notice I put one of the legs parallel to the rails. This is very important. This gives us nice lateral stability this way. It also makes sure that these knobs don't conflict with the top of the tripod. So make sure you have that leg, one of the legs, lined up with the rails when you first drop it on. Now, if you want to lock this so that you can pick the whole unit up and not have it pop off of there, you just use one of the low profile knobs that's with one of the leveling feet. This is why we had to have more threads exposed coming through the top of the tripod. You want to use one of the lower profile ones so that the overall height here is not going to conflict with a tie-down knob coming riding underneath the trolley. Well, if that looks good to you height-wise, then you go ahead and put the trolley on. And the grooves of the wheels are going to capture the unit onto the rails. You notice these two have adjustable knobs. So what these are going to allow you to do is to move the wheels in and out to create a different amount of tension as the trolley rolls. If you like a really light feel or more drag, you can set it that way. Whatever you do, don't try to make that decision until you get the load of your camera on there, because it'll feel different once the camera is putting all that weight down on the wheels. But you can see it's nice, it's captive, and it's adjustable. We finished the trolley by putting our teardrop shaped piece that was on the jib back on here. So now we just drop our camera system in there and we're ready to go. Keep in mind that the lighter it is, the easier it is to move. It's a little harder to come into stop, so you have to feather it often with just grabbing the wheel and feathering the wheel in. If you put a lot of tension on it, it's easier to just slide into the stop. However, a lot of tension, it's harder to make a start without a little bit of a breakaway sometimes. So it's kind of a operator choice, you know, whether you like a heavy load, light load, or somewhere in between. These two knobs that had been part of our stiffening bracket can become safeties for the end of the rails. And they serve another function. If you're doing a shot, moving, and then decide to do some stationary shots from the same position, you may want to protect yourself from having the trolley inadvertently move. So you can use these as blocks for the trolley itself, so that it becomes locked off like a tripod and you're not going to have the wheels rocking on you. Okay, so when we go into low mode, if we want to use our leveling feet, first thing we have to do is rotate this bar so that it goes 90 degrees the other direction. To do that, all we do is loosen this knob, lift up, rotate, and drop back down. And there's pins for it to drop into. Then it's a little easier if we just turn the whole mechanism over. It's a little easier to get at the pieces. We're going to put in our leveling feet into these bars, put one in the middle and one on the end. These primarily are used as just leveling feet for the low mode in conjunction with the 12-inch rails. You see the diameter of this matches the diameter of this hole. So these just plug together like that and then thread together like this. And then you have that on both ends, and this creates the leveling feet on each end of the rails for the slider mode. So for this centerpiece, we're going to use this same 17-inch piece that we used as the stiffening bracket on the jib. And we're going to place it in here. And we want to make sure you place it so that the holes are pointing this way, because there's no holes that way, for the leveling feet. So we lock this down. Now these leveling feet were the same ones that were used on that stiffening bracket, and they don't have a capture one on the other side. So what we're going to do is just turn this whole unit over. And then if you want midpoint leveling feet, you just drop them in like that. And of course, the adjustment is by moving the knobs up and down to create the level. So in low mode, it would look something like this. And by being able to pan and tilt with my traditional fluid head, gives me a lot more movement capabilities than you get off of some of the other sliders that only let the camera point in one direction. So this is our Explorer assembly video. I hope that answers all your questions. If not, give me a call. Go out and make some great videos and have fun with your new toys.